episode of the BioHub. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Mark Mallon, CEO of George Medicines. Mark is a global leader in the pharmaceutical industry with over 25 years of experience. His career includes 24 years at AstraZeneca, where he held several key executive positions, leading operations across the globe. More recently, Mark has served as the CEO of NeoGenomics and Ironwood Pharmaceuticals, driving transformation and growth in both roles. Now, at George Medicines, Mark leads the development of innovative combination therapies designed to optimize the treatment of cardiometabolic diseases. In this episode, we'll explore Mark's journey, the company's innovative approach to tackling cardiometabolic diseases, and the importance of addressing global health inequities. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you?
Thanks, Max. Really pleased to be here. Amazing.
Let's jump straight into it. So,
Sure.
First of all, talking about your career, that impressive career, and especially that long tenure at AstraZeneca, what then drew you to take the CEO role at George Medicines?
Sure. It's a couple of things. So first and foremost is the unmet need in hypertension. I actually, for most of my career, have had responsibilities for antihypertensive medicines. We have many good medicines. AstraZeneca had many good medicines. But despite that, still, most people actually don't get to their target blood pressure level. Globally, depending on the source, only 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 people get to their target blood pressure control. In the US, not even maybe half people get to their target blood pressure control, despite all the resources. And so, it's still argued that hypertension is maybe the largest killer globally. Upwards of 10 million people die annually because of the bad outcomes associated and driven by hypertension, whether it's heart failure or stroke or heart attacks. So it's been great to be working on the science and trying to make a difference there, but it's also been frustrating because despite these good medicines, we aren't really fully where we need to be. And so when I met the people from George Medicine and they told me about GMRX2, our lead product, combination product, which would be the first antihypertensive combination with low and ultra low doses, which we can talk about, I thought this could be a really interesting additional tool in solving and getting more people to their blood pressure control, because we know most people need multiple mechanisms, different medicines together to get them to their target. So that was the first thing that really drew me in. Of course, then once I met the team, we've got a great team, and we've got this great collaboration relationship with the George Institute, which is an exceptional research institute. So for all of those reasons, I thought, wow, this would be a great chance to try to continue to make an impact on patient health and do good things.
Amazing. And I'm glad you mentioned the George Institute then as well, because George Medicines has that intriguing backstory. Can you just tell us about how the company started and its mission?
Sure. So the George Institute, as I said, it's a research institute based actually in Sydney, Australia. In Australia, there's a lot of good support for research, medical research in Australia from the government and from other sources. And the George Institute was set up with a mission a number of years ago to focus on making a difference in health for low and middle income countries, and specifically in chronic non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular and metabolic diseases. And so that makes them unique from some of the other medical research or healthcare public nonprofit organizations, many of them who focus on things like maternal health, pediatric health, and anti-infections, all really critical. But in the low and middle income and developing country worlds, cardio diseases, metabolic diseases are a huge issue as well. So that's the kind of the origins of the George Institute. In doing this research, one of the things that they've hypothesized and actually now have demonstrated in a number of settings, that bringing together different medicines into a polypill or a combination product could make a difference, both in getting more people to their targets or better treatment, and also maybe improving things like compliance, adherence, and even reducing the cost for patients. So that's their sort of overall mission. Some of the projects they're working on, it's out of that work came the idea of GMRX2 and the use of a low and ultra low dose triple combination antihypertensive to try to make a difference in hypertension. They also had other ideas in the cardiometabolic space that was rolled into this new company they set up, George Medicine, to develop that, because The institute is a research institute. They're not a pharmaceutical company. They don't have the capabilities to get a drug developed. And so the institute partnered with Brandon Capital, a venture capital firm in Australia, to set up the George Medicines, and basically gave them the task, starting with GMRX2, to bring these medicines to the market.
That's amazing. And your team, let's just go more specifically on the science. So your team is combining existing best-in-class treatments in new ways. What's the science behind this? And also, why is it such an exciting approach for patients?
So we know that for many patients, they're going to need more than one mechanism, one drug, to get their blood pressure under control. For example, 70% of patients in the US today are already on more than one blood pressure medicine to try to manage their blood pressure. And in many cases, they're still not getting to the control. So why is this? If you think about it, you take a single medicine like a common calcium channel blocker, amlodipine. When you dose that medicine, you immediately get a really good impact on efficacy. But as the dosing goes up, there's a tendency for the body to want to sort of correct against that, even though the blood pressure needs to be lowered. And so as you increase the dosing, you start to lose, you have diminishing returns on efficacy, and you end up picking more tolerability issues. And so the way we've learned to get around that is to do combination therapy. And so that's sort of why do we do combination therapy in blood pressure? Because most people, again, are going to need different mechanisms to work on different targets, and then to work synergistically to sort of make sure we're overcoming any homeostasis types of issues that might be occurring. And so that's sort of the background to why we use combination therapy in treating blood pressure. And this is also common in other diseases. The interesting thing about hypertension is that historically the way people have treated, they start with monotherapy, kind of maximize the dose of the monotherapy, and then add the next drug. It's starting to change, but that's how it's been historically. And that takes quite a bit of time. Often it's an exhausting journey for patients and physicians, and patients never get to their blood pressure control because they're not adding combination therapy until later in the journey. What we hope to change is make it easier to start sooner with combination therapy. And that's through our quarter dose of GMRX2. And I should say, GMRX2 is made of some best-in-class molecules, temosartan, which is an ARB, amlodipine, which is a calcium channel blocker, and adapamide, which is a diuretic. And so we've basically made 3 doses, a standard triple combination, what we refer to as a low-dose combination, triple combination, which is basically a half of each of the components, and then the ultra-low, which is a quarter of each of the components.
Yeah. But, when we look forward at what milestones there is to come for you guys, what are the next things to look forward to? What's coming out?
So I should give a little bit of an overview of where we're at in the process, and I'll answer that question as part of that. So, of course, the first step of getting drug to market is you've got to do your development program, and we've just completed the phase 3 program for GMRX2, and that's the compound I've been describing, or the combination I've been describing. We submitted that NDA to the FDA in the US in August, and looking forward to an approval at the end of the first half of 2025, beginning of the second half of 25. We actually have a PDUFA date that's set in June, which is very exciting. So we have 2 positive phase 3 studies. One that addresses the requirement of the FDA for any combination product, where you look at the in our case, the triple combination, and compare it to the 3 different dual combinations that kind of make up the drug. And you want to make sure, of course, that the triple is better, offers efficacy advantages than each of the 3 combos. That's the combination rule that the FDA requires for any combination product. And then we've done a second phase 3 that actually looks at using the quarter dose, the low dose, and the ultra low dose and the half dose in treating naive patients. And so we did a placebo-controlled study comparing placebo to using GMRX2 quarter and half. Both studies met all primary endpoints and secondary endpoints, both efficacy and safety, and so that work has been done. Now we're working with the FDA to go through the review process. It's going very well. We're also getting the word out and publishing the data that we had. We had a fantastic ESC meeting in September, which we can talk about, and we've got a number of publications. And then we're working to find the right commercial partners to launch the product around the globe. As a small development-focused company, we're not the ideal platform necessarily to launch this ourselves. And so we want to find the right companies in the regions across the market to get it to patients. And that's the work that we're focused on now.
Yeah, that's amazing. How does that process go? What's the decision-making process like, and what's it entail?
Well, we've been going through a process to identify, pharmaceutical companies that are globally working and in key regions that have a presence in cardiovascular medicine, even ideally a presence in hypertension, and engaging with them, having discussions, and making the case that GMRX2 could be a great addition to their portfolio. We're finding particular interest from basic specialty pharma companies around the globe, regional to or mid-size companies that are looking to supplement or add to their portfolio and really see the potential benefits. And hopefully in the near future, as in the first half of 2025, we'll be announcing and closing our first deals to bring GMRX to the patients.
That's amazing. Yeah. And then talking of big pharma, you obviously know big pharma really well. And then you've now come to a smaller company, a little bit more under the radar, like George Medicines. What's the transition been like for you? How have you found it?
So, it's been really fun and exciting to be in a very kind of different environment, much smaller organization than what I'm used to working. It's also been challenging at times. So the fun part is I've always loved kind of getting into the details, into the work, rolling up my sleeves and being part of a team that's making something happen and tackling problems. And of course, when you're running bigger organizations, you want to empower your teams and the people to do that. And you can get a little bit distant from the day-to-day nuts and bolts work. And so it's fun to get back into that. But I have to say also, that is a little bit of a change of pace. So it's actually exercising muscle sometimes I haven't used in quite a few years. So that's taken some used to getting used to. The other thing that's interesting about George Medicine is that so we're a small team, less than 10 people in George Medicines. We work through partnerships. They've been very successful, I should say. But we have a global footprint. Actually, we have a footprint as big as many much larger organizations because we have a team in London. I'm based in the US, and we have people in Sydney, Australia. And then we have our whole network of partners. So, for example, we work with Paramount as our supplier that's producing the tablets, and they're based in India. So you've got this dynamic of being small and lean and trying to move fast, but actually having to do it over this incredible sort of global footprint, which presents both some fun things because you get to meet and go to great places, but it also adds challenges because we were working many different odd hours on the video call a lot. Sometimes it feels like from when you wake up, you get on a video call to when you go to sleep, you're on a video call. I don't know if you experience that. I suspect that in your job, you have a similar phenomenon.
Yeah, I've probably had a similar situation a couple of times where I've had a client in Australia and working a role for them in the US, and then I'm UK, so it's the same 3 time zones that you have had to work with, and I know that can be tough. I actually think the UK is quite a nice middle ground for different time zones sometimes, so we don't have it too bad. And normally it's the other countries that have to make the bit of the sacrifice.
Right.
But yeah, and then we're talking about small biotech, and how often they play a really crucial role in innovation. We spoke about this last time. But why do you think it's so important for the industry, and what what makes them different to larger organizations in their approach?
So yeah, I do think they're critical. I mean, the reality. I mean, big pharma plays a crucial role in getting medicines to patients and in bringing, you know, inventing medicines, driving innovation. It's incredible what they're able to do. But they have a term. Many of them, all of them, really have lots and lots of opportunities, and of course they have to prioritize. And just because they've prioritized a particular molecule or combination product or technology and said, look, this isn't currently fitting with our strategy, or can't really compete with the other programs in terms of value or impact to patients, they have to stop that work. And so that certainly, these create opportunities. And there's many examples with products being sort of out licensed to pharma, to smaller or mid-sized companies, who then take an idea that really wasn't a fit anymore in big pharma, but actually is still could do something really important for patients, and ultimately is taken to the market by a different company and becomes an important product. So there's that reality for big pharma. And of course, the technology and science and innovation happens everywhere in the world. Not every scientist, every inventor, every person working on that has great ideas wants to be part of a big company. And so, having that ecosystem of smaller companies that can move faster, that can do things that are more out of the box sometimes, is another great source and reason why the whole the biotech ecosystem has developed over time and is hugely important. And I think George Medicine is a great example of that, where in most cases, big pharma companies are not looking at molecules that have had patent expiries, or are not looking at combination products. And so somebody like George Medicines that can have a different priority, can see the possibilities, can really make that happen. And that's the story of GMRX too.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, as well, do you think different personalities fit better in different sizes of companies?
Um, yes, that's probably true. I don't want to necessarily stereotype, because big pharma and small pharma have brilliant people that are entrepreneurial, people that are innovative, people that are really passionate about making things happen. But sure, some people are more willing to take on personal risk, that can be with a startup company. Some people are more comfortable dealing with large organizations and the communication and management and managing complexity that is required, a different type of organizational complexity. And so, yeah, there's a range of skills. But I would say one thing I found in common is what makes a good person on your team is the same everywhere, right? Do they collaborate? Do they have great ideas? Can they make things happen? Are they passionate and committed, and can they deliver and work as a group? And so those qualities are common, everywhere I've gone in successful organizations.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, was there a moment for you where you thought, actually, I'd really like to try small biotech, or did you always have it in the back of your mind that you wanted to make the move eventually, or did it just come about, fairly spontaneously?
Well, so my experience, I should say, about a career is, as I think many people is, they're not linear, and there are surprising twists and turns, I think. I mean, I wonder if 10 years ago were thinking you were going to be doing podcasts. I suspect not. And here you are doing podcasts, right? So, which is incredible. And so I can't say that I necessarily 10 or 15 years ago, while I was working at AZ, had this ambition. I want to work for a small company. I loved what I was doing, and I saw a lot of possibilities with AstraZeneca. Well, basically it was a convergence of things. I did have a couple of friends. I grew up in the Boston area. Had many friends in Boston that would always be whispering in my ear, saying, "You got to come to biotech. You got to come to biotech. This is where the action is. This is where the fun is." And I was like, "Well, I'm working for AstraZeneca on these really great medicines, and I'm getting a chance to work all around the world. I'm good to go." But that was influencing me over time. I did want to have a chance to be a CEO, and I don't know if you've noticed, but AstraZeneca has a really excellent CEO in Pascal Soriot, and he's been there, and he's still there. So I did look at was looking at our opportunities outside the AstraZeneca. And then the last thing that was a factor is because we all have personal lives too, hopefully. I'd been outside the U.S. for 10 years, and my adult kids were back in the U.S. I had family, and I felt like it was time. It's time to get back to the U.S., to the Boston area where I was from, and so those things all came together when the opportunity at Ironwood emerged, and sort of that's what drove me. So the short answer, I guess, to your question is no. I didn't have this sort of long-standing mission saying I must work in a biotech or a startup or a small company, but here I am, and really happy that I'm here.
Yeah. The only reason I really mention that is because it is a conversation I have with a lot of big pharma execs, where they'll talk about making the move to small biotech and what it is they'd look for. So that's why I thought it was interesting. But I'm going to completely change the topic now. I, I want to talk about like George Medicines on the global scale and how committed you are to making an impact in less fortunate countries. What efforts are you leading in this space, and also what do you think the industry as a whole should be doing?
So there's several things that we're doing, and I think there's some things that the whole industry is doing and always could do more of. So the first of all, actually doing the research, the science, the studies, not just globally, as we do it in. Not just in developed countries like the U.S. and Europe, but really, truly globally. We have a global footprint, and all of the clinical programs that have been done for GMRX2 have been involved in Europe and the U.S., but also in places like Sri Lanka, India, Nigeria. Really, from the start, if you will, from day one, doing the work in countries that really will need this medicine. And you saw that we had two great phase 3 studies. Both came out with all of the primary and secondary endpoints landed. We were able to show that we can get with GMRX2 and the three dose ranges, more than 60 to 70% of people to their target blood pressure goal, and that was better than what we saw either for placebo, of course, but also importantly with the dual combinations that we tested. And we've been committed from day one to doing pragmatic studies. And we've done, the initial pilot study or proof of concept study called the TRIUMPH study, which was done in Sri Lanka, that showed using in a pragmatic setting that a low dose triple drug can get a high percentage of people to their blood pressure target. They got the TRIUMPH study, the triple low dose triple in that study got 70% of people to the target goals compared to usual care, which was only 50%. And we published and shared the results of the Veronica study at the ESC. This was a study that was done in Nigeria. Again, it's a pragmatic study. It was an open label study, again, comparing GMRX2 and using the 3 doses as the physicians felt were best compared to usual or standard care in Nigeria. And again, we got 80% of people to their target blood pressures in that study, which was 10 points better. And we had 5-point better blood pressure control across the length of the study. All of those studies either were done completely in emerging markets, or I should say in low and middle income countries, or at least had some of their patient populations. So do more research in the low and middle income countries. They can do great work. Make sure that we're thinking about sort of unmet needs and sort of what kind of data is required, not just in the context of the U.S. and Europe, but we're also thinking in global platforms. And then I think the last thing is that we should be looking at sort of creative commercial models to get the products to everyone in the world, right? If you're in Colombia, you don't want to have somebody tell you, well, we can't get access to the medicine because Colombia is not a priority. Every patient that needs a medicine wants to feel like they're the priority, and that's what I think we should be aspiring to in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, when you talk about like the clinical trials as well in less fortunate countries. Is it that much more difficult to do it outside the US as well, or?
I guess it would be, I'd have to say probably there are some challenges that are greater than in developed countries. Maybe some of the logistics and systems are not as seamless. On the other hand, there's advantages. In many developed countries, it can be hard to recruit patients because so many people are getting good treatment, and they don't want to give that up to join a study where they could, have to go on a placebo or, have to take a lesser option as part of the study, or are just nervous about being in studies. And so can be a lot of opportunities to get better patient recruitment in low and middle income countries. Second thing is there's actually a tremendous amount of talent and capacity. Many of the people that work in healthcare around the globe are trained in the best places in Europe and the US and elsewhere, or have great training locally. And I've always been really impressed and surprised by the quality of the research partners that we've had wherever I've been. And so to me, I see, yes, there could be some logistical things that are more challenging. On the other hand, I think it continues to be an underutilized resource for getting great science done.
Amazing. Yeah. This is my last question, Mark, and I actually don't know if you had a chance to think about it, so I'll give you a bit of time. But if you could have dinner with any scientist or innovator, past or present, who would it be and why?
Yeah, I did have a chance to think about this. Thanks for giving me a heads up. And the company and the name that came to mind was Steve Jobs and Apple. And the why I did is that what I understand of Apple, right? They're a tremendous innovator, but they're even, I think, they're specifically known for innovation and how they make it easier for people to interact with and use innovation. And they're not necessarily the company that's coming up with the next best chip or a individual petite piece of software or technology, although they do a lot of that. But I think they're best known for is understanding customer needs, where the problems are, what's the solution, and coming up with the innovative way to pull all the pieces together in a way that is sort of remarkably better from a user standpoint, from a end user standpoint. And so thus we have things like iPads and the iPhones and iTunes that have really transformed the world and people's lives in so many different ways, and it all relied on bringing existing and new technology, in-house technology and technology developed elsewhere, together in a completely new way. And what we're trying to do with GMRX2, we're leveraging some existing molecules that are excellent molecules, really well established, and bringing them together in a new way. In particular, bringing them together not just at standard doses, but at the in the low and the ultra low doses. And those new options that don't exist today, that we have have been recognized as, because patents have been granted in multiple countries already, substance of matter patents out to 2038. So the innovation has been recognized. It's coming the other way in a new tool that I think is going to allow physicians to get their patients to the target blood pressure much faster than what they've been able to do before. Potentially, the product has to get approved, and of course, it's not going to work every time. And there are many good medicines, but we think we've got great results that show that GMRX2 could be an excellent solution for many people.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think Steve Jobs is always top of my list as well. Even not even from just an innovation standpoint, but also from a leadership, cultural, building a company aspect as well. I think he, as a leader, he was world class on all fronts.
Yeah, those are also critical aspects of success that would be interesting to talk with him. He's also somebody that has gone through failure and kind of came through that and continued to sort of pursue his beliefs, the vision of what could be. And so there's learnings there too, I think, from because we all find ourselves at different times where things didn't work as we hoped, and how you respond to that often defines, sort of ultimately what your impact or career can be. And so I think we can all learn from that aspect of Steve Jobs. Yeah.
I think that's especially in biotech as well. With the ups and downs in the industry, and it's not for the light-hearted.
Right.
But
So I
look,
want,
oops, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
yeah, I wanted to just say thanks. I think you were saying that we're probably getting to the end of our time. I really appreciate the time that we've had together. I did want to recognize the team at George Medicines and at the George Institute. I mean, I just started with George Medicines in April, so most of what I described and what they've achieved is achieved without me. I think hopefully we've had some positive impact since we've come on board, and we're headed in the right direction. I just want to start end with where I started. Right, great. We've had great medicines, but we still for treating high blood pressure, but still most people don't get to the target blood pressure. And sort of every few millimeters of lowering makes a real difference in terms of reducing risk of really bad outcomes: heart attack, stroke, heart failure. And so I think we've really got to push to do better, and that's what I feel like George Medicines was about and is about, and GMRX too. And so we've had now 3 publications: JAMA, the Lancet, and the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, that basically shows that we have excellent efficacy. In some cases, in a pragmatic study of Veronica, we showed that we achieve really high, like up to 80% control and improvement versus usual care. And in those publications at the ESC really demonstrated, I think, a platform of evidence that while GMRX is not going to be the answer, it could be a powerful new tool pending approval by the FDA and other regulatory authorities around the world. And we are aiming to make this available globally, so we will be submitting around the world. And that's where I think we all get involved with the pharmaceutical industry, is trying to get a better medicine to patients to hopefully make a big difference in their lives. And that's what Judge Medicines has been about. And I'm very excited with what we have in GMRX2 and what we can do in the future.
Yeah, I think you guys are inspiring. I think what you achieve with a small team as well has been amazing. So, I wanted to thank you again for coming on, Mark. Pleasure. And please, everyone, like and subscribe to the BioHub. And thanks again, Mark.
Thank you, Max.